Welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast.
Hey Amy, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, aloha from Hawaii.
I love it. Instantly, I know we're going to get on just with that opening statement. So, Amy, I guess before we even get into kind of everything about Amy and who she is, I asked you right at the very start what your log line was, and kind of to bring it to the show, kind of what who are you and what's your log line, and do you have that?
This was a difficult task, Danny. And what's funny is I always ask people to do this as well, like a 6-word story, and it was really tricksy for me. But I would say that my log line could be that I'm a professional, obsessive dot connector, a mind butterfly, and an itinerant artist.
Oh, wow. I'm impressed.
And it's funny because my middle name actually means butterfly. It's Vanessa. And I think about this a lot, that I flit around from thing to thing. And I'm sort of a generalist in that aspect, I guess. So that's why I said mind butterfly.
I love that. That's ace. So before we get in, Amy, when you was young and you was in school and the teacher would ask you kind of, Amy, what is it you want to be when you grow up? What would be the answer you'd give him?
My first love was being a spy. I just wanted to be a spy. And then I found out later I probably would tell all the secrets, so not a good choice. But I also fantasized about being the person that does the illustrations and animations for the Pink Panther openings. You know, they have those movies. So I guess, maybe an illustrator, animator. And then my third choice was always elevator voice girl. And I still kind of want to be that. Like, I would love to be Siri. I would love to be the voice of Siri, or turn left now, going to floor 4. I just kind of just think that would be fun to do. So yeah, those were my 3 top choices.
Okay, cool. So before we get into this, I guess I tend to ask all the guests to pick 4 numbers from 1 to 100. What 4 numbers would yours be?
Okay. 4 numbers.
Yep.
Just random. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to pick 22.
Okay.
88.
Yep. Okay.
2 and 3. 2 and 3. Ha ha. 2 and 3, 22 and 88. There you go.
Perfect. We will come back to them later on down the line. So Amy, I've been following you for a while on Twitter, and then we recently connected up on LinkedIn. But I guess for the people who don't know who you are, maybe give us a bit of a brief bio on who you are, kind of where you're from, and kind of what you've been through from here to get to where you are right now.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Southern California, and my mother was a teacher. My father was in education as well, but I never wanted to be a teacher. And then, of course, I ended up teaching. But it was wonderful. And I had a 24-year career in the classroom, mostly with the high school students, teaching everything from humanities to history to Latin to computer things and English, so all kinds of things. And then I left the classroom about 3 years ago to work for a startup in San Francisco, which really threw me into the business world, the crazy Silicon Valley-esque business world. And what we were doing was writing curriculum for innovation and creativity for schools in Brazil and Colombia and India. And that really got me back to the roots of what good learning is, because I had been really involved with digital tech and integration, and that was fab. But this really got me to think about, well, what if you didn't have anything except maybe like a piece of paper and a pencil? What would good pedagogy look like? So I really enjoyed that. And for the past 10 years or so, I've been speaking a lot and helping teachers be better teachers, I guess. And more recently, I've gotten to be really into visual thinking, visual literacies, and of course, creativity, how it works, how to make yourself more creative and whatnot. And I ended up writing a book with a fellow teacher, Dan Ryder, who teaches in Maine. And we've written a book that has a bunch of recipes in it, I guess, for teachers to use with students to amplify their creativity and allow them to show the intention behind what they make. But I'm actually more interested in how that can be applied to the corporate sector and to other sectors, so not just students.
Okay, so name of the book is
Intention, Critical Creativity in the Classroom. And the intention is kind of tapping into the articulating your reasoning behind what you make. So that's kind of the crux of all the theory behind it.
Cool. Okay. So I guess what if I said to you, what is creativity to you, and how do you bring creativity into your everyday life? What would you say to that?
So for me, creativity is not necessarily the common definition that everybody says is creating something novel that's useful. But that to me is more innovation. So I think creativity is actually connecting dots. So I'm a big believer in metaphorical thinking, in wonder, and kind of seeing things that people might miss. So really noticing things, curating things, taking things in, and then doing that dot connecting. Seeing relationships where other people don't, making juxtapositions. And that's why I love remix so much. So for creativity, I think that's where you have to start, is you have to start with gathering your dots, your metaphorical dots, which is taking things in and then internalizing them and then being able to make these connections. So having a sense of wonder and curiosity is kind of where it starts. Being able to always want to learn things and want to see things. And there's a thing called being a flaneur, which is kind of this old 1800s kind of thing where people wander around the town and really take things in, and they don't really have a plan. They just kind of wander. And I love that wandering aspect, kind of having your mind wander, right? And wandering around and taking things in. So I'm a flaneuse, I guess.
So, when we look at, so I've just got your book, so literally it is fresh through the door, so I'm just working my way through it. But what a good book! Instantly, it was I quickly went through pretty much the first chapter. I was like, yes, this is going to be one of the most important books I read this year, I reckon, for me personally, and just kind of allowing my mind to wander, I guess. So, from a kind of classroom school background. Obviously, we was talking just before we jumped on this live, and we was talking about kind of using it in a context within a learning and development industry, within, say, an old corporate environment. Have you seen much this done well in a corporate environment? Have you delivered a lot with it within the corporate environment, I guess?
Yeah, I just actually got back from a really cool workshop. It was an all-day experience in Melbourne, and we went through kind of these different themes between wonder and remix and ideation. How do we come up with ideas? What are some strategies that we can actually use to come up with ideas? And then how do we refine them? And all types of kind of themes within creativity. Creative constraints is a big one, is that a lot of people think creativity involves freedom. But actually, most people find that they can be more creative when there's some parameters, which is kind of what my book's about. It's a lot of parameters and prompts and probes. And I really think that's helpful for people, because as they practice these kind of techniques and strategies, they can see how they can apply in any content, with any context, with any age group, and remix them for their own purposes. So even though, like, for example, our book is written for teachers and students in K-12, I find that adults are really loving it. And a lot of people that work with teams say, oh, this is perfect for my professional development or facilitation for this team, blah, blah, blah. So it is really fun. And my big coup the other day was I had about 350 or so people in one room, and I was doing a keynote on visual thinking. And I got them to do a Tai Chi where they learned the principles of design in Tai Chi. This was actually not developed by me. It was developed by a friend of mine who's an art teacher, but it was so cool to see like 350 adults in the morning doing this Tai Chi, learning the principles of design and moving their bodies. And it was really neat.
Oh wow. So I guess we talk about experiences and stuff and kind of learning experiences, and I just
Hmm.
think for someone who was going through that the design principles through Tai Chi, what a great experience. That's something when you walk out, and depending on how much you recall is probably important, but actually how many people are going to talk about that in a year's time, about the experience and kind of how they felt and how it was a little bit out of the box and a little bit quirky, and I just think there's so much weight
It
to
was
it.
it was definitely quirky. It was great to see. And the other one that really was fun for them, I think, was I love finding interesting things in the mundane. So I asked people to take anything out of their bags, their purses, their handbags, their backpacks or whatever. And then as a team, they created a sculpture that represented something that they learned at the conference with all these items. And they had to label them and whatever. And it was really fun to see because it was like, 350 people creating these sculptures out of just everyday things. And the way they used these everyday objects was so brilliant, and just doing a gallery walk at the end and seeing everybody's kind of takeaways from the conference that they could have written down in a normal way, given conference feedback, but instead they were making art and they were using metaphor and thinking metaphorically.
So cool, so cool. So with this podcast, Amy, I guess it's about the people behind the learning, and we'll dip. I kind of have dipped in between, um, kind of digital designers and people who are doing true innovation, not just designing, say your e-learning stuff. I've
Hmm.
dipped between that to creative minds and coaching people and certain people who I know are really good coaches, and it's kind of all about the the people behind that and getting to know a little bit more about the people
Hmm.
behind that. So some of these questions you'll probably be like, wow, where's that come from? But let's just see where we go. So
Okay.
if I was to say to you have to give a gift of a book to three people, and it can't be your own. Let's put that
Hmm.
one straight away. And it's a gift to kind of like say to three loved ones or to three friends or family or whatever. What
Hmm.
what book would you give them?
I give them my favorite book in the entire world, which is Marshall McLuhan's The Medium is the Massage. So
Okay.
that I have that in next to me right now, actually. I love the artistry in it. It's illustrated by Quentin Fiore. My copy is anyway. It's really like mid-century cool. But I just love Marshall McLuhan. I love his ideas. I think they're poignant for today. And I also like the way that he's not too verbose. You know what I mean? It's like he's down to the point kind of thing. And I think that would be the book.
Okay. Cool. So so what's in your whole career? Maybe this can be personal, it can be professional. Take it. These questions can be adapted to any which way you want to go with it,
Hmm.
Amy. So what's been your probably your most positive negative experience? And it sounds a bit weird to say that, but what's been
Yeah.
the experience where you in the moment you've gone, wow, this is a real bad thing, and it's been oh, this is bad, only to kind of reflect upon it maybe in a week, a year, a month's time, and it's been kind of one of the biggest positives in your life.
Yeah, hands down. And this is a story I share quite often is about 11 years ago, I got diagnosed with cancer. And I had just, my kid was only just turning 2. And, it was a really stressful time. I was teaching. And I really started to go down to the dark side, as most people would do. But then something happened where I really started noticing how beautiful life was and how wonderful everything that even was mundane was. And I really wanted to create some sort of legacy as well, to really kind of make my imprint in the world. And I was able to work with a fellow teacher, kind of a creative soulmate in a way. And he and I produced these music videos. It sounds really frivolous and whimsical, but basically they're parodies of 80s pop songs mostly. And they're history lessons because I was teaching history at the time. And I got to use all my wigs because I was bald. So I had, 50 million wigs and dress up in costumes and act in these kind of funny music videos, but they were real lessons. I mean, we didn't dumb them down or anything. And I enjoyed writing the lyrics. I enjoyed singing them and recording, learned all about that. And anyway, YouTube was just starting out at the time. I mean, it's right in the beginning days where there was only cat videos, and my students said, "Oh, you should put them on YouTube." And what I learned from that experience was, because they became kind of viral right away, is that it doesn't matter if you share something. It doesn't matter if you affect just one person, it's worth it. So I became really into sharing work and working openly and just not caring if anybody liked it or not. And what I found from that was that the audience that I thought would appreciate these videos, which were, students revising for their history exams or whatever, was actually expanded to, people I never thought of, like people who just enjoyed that song, or people who were learning English and they loved the subtitles, or people that were hard of hearing and they loved the subtitles. So it was really fascinating. And then I became intrigued with social media and the power of being connected as learners and being connected as creators. And yeah, still to this day, I think for me, that was a transformative experience because I look at life differently. And I have this quote that I stole from Henry Miller, which is, paint what you like and die happy. And it's made me more of I guess having that experience has made me more of an unapologetic person who just wants to make something cool every day, even if it's something little, but like not waste a day, basically.
Okay, cool. So a few things on there which I'd love to touch upon, I guess. So, you talk about a creative soulmate. So, So what is that? What is that to you?
I think there's these people out there that you just click with and you can do wonderful things with because your talents complement each other, and you're not, and you're carefully critiquing the other person in a positive way where you make them better and they make you better. You don't flatter each other, but you build on each other's talents. And I've known a couple, and I've done collaborative work with a couple. Dan is one, my co-author. We knew immediately when we met at a conference that, wow, we have the same approach to things, and we should definitely collaborate and pool our efforts. And then Herb, who was the colleague that I worked with on the music videos, he was very shy. It was like unlike me, right? He was very shy, very humble, but he was such a brilliant musician and kind of had a whimsical heart about him. And he was just, I remember he really got me through cancer at one time because I said, I hate seeing myself on film and having no hair and all this stuff. And he says, you're so much more than your hair. And that really stuck with me. And I've been able to help other people in that situation using that kind of line, like, what is your essence? You're much more than your hair or, what people see outside. What do you want to give back to the world through your creation?
Okay. I guess you're right, because I think, when I look at kind of my career where I'm up to now, there's always people. I think it's the easiest thing in the world to pull somebody else's work apart, and it always will be the easiest job in the world. And there's ways to do it in a good way, but there's kind of them organic things which happen, which when you're giving feedback, it's coming from the right place, it's coming from the heart, and it's to kind of grow you but in a real loving way. I'm quite lucky. I've probably had 2 or 3 so far, I'd say, who I've had good friends who will help that. But then the creative soulmate, yeah, they tend to be the unicorns, if you like. The ones which actually really do shine out. So I like that, a creative soulmate.
It's like the Paul and John, right? It's like everybody has to have a Paul and John relationship. Sometimes it's dicey, but but I think it really does, build you. I use it, speaking of feedback, something that I like to share with people is like, if you use this sort of, if you're giving feedback to someone or critique, say, I love that, because first of all, you have to love something about what they've done. And then instead of tearing it apart, say, well, what if? So love the what if. So what if causes the person who's doing the critiquing to actually think creatively and proactively, rather than just tearing something down, but actually proposing a change that could happen. So I think that's really helpful. Love the what if.
Yeah. One of my old bosses from probably a while back gave me a good piece of information. She said, rather than use the word but, replace it with and watch what happens. And it's something that's kind of stuck me for a while. You could say, this is really great, but, and then you could say this is really great, and what about if we put this on? It
Mm-hmm.
just completely reframes the question, and I guess can kind of sometimes take the sting out of it as well. So we talked about remix,
Mm.
and for them who don't know what remix is,
Oh,
a remix
I
in
have a
your
great
world.
analogy for remix. So I use alcoholic beverages for my description. So remix is a transformation of something. So I like to think of a Long Island iced tea where it's you've got all these different alcohols in there, but it's transformed into something brand new. And you don't really even know what's in there, but you know that there are other pieces in there. Where a mashup, which is a kind of remix, is really more like a layered drink, like a white Russian.
Okay.
So you can see distinctively the layers. So people do, for example, compilation video, like super cuts of videos, and they mash them all up. You can still see the individual films, but they create new meaning from the mashup. But for remix, it really is being transformative. So um, I think all creativity is remix. I think there's nothing really novel, that all creativity builds on other people's creativity. And, we stand on the shoulders of giants, that whole quote, but it's really true that all the great artists that we think, like think of Quentin Tarantino, for example, like he draws from so many sources. Same with George Lucas, drawing from, Japanese film to
Yeah.
this aesthetic to that aesthetic, all kinds of things have been remixed into this new transformative piece. And I love remix because it's kind of irreverent in a way. So when I do my own art, I like to do remixes. Like I do this thing called Bard art, which is mixing Bridget Bardot into famous pieces of art. And it's just kind of a funny little experiment for me, but people love it because it gives new meaning to the actual piece of art. And I try to really match like her position, her body position in the photo with whatever's going on in the art. So things like that, things like um, I had this series called Mushroom Moments because we're in Hawaii. We're really obsessed with, nuclear stuff right now. I went through that whole drill. And so as a kind of a response, I did this thing called Mushroom Moments where I stick images of kind of people from the 50s and 60s in advertisements where they look really happy. And then there's like a mushroom cloud blowing up behind them, but they're just oblivious, kind of thing. So it can be like a political statement or can bring life to something old. Um, so one fun thing to do is like you can draw over, in your phone, you can take a picture and draw over it. And it's really fun to go to a museum and take a picture of the artwork and then caption it or, make voice bubbles coming out of the artwork or
I
draw
love
little things on the people or whatever, just kind of graffiti over them digitally.
Wow, to be honest, that has never entered my head to do that. But that's definitely on my to-do list. 100%. We have some great museums. We have a great museum in Manchester as well. So I'll do that on my to-do list next time I'm over there. I mean
Yeah.
that'll kind of give me that emotional jerk to go, thanks, Amy. I remember us having that podcast way back when. So, when you look at your videos and stuff and kind of you expressing yourself, I guess, what's the top maybe tools, resources, what you use? Maybe it's in your day-to-day life or within your when you're in your creative flow, if you like,
Hmm.
but you can't use any social media as an option. So
Okay.
you can't use YouTube because YouTube will be an easy out for you. So you can't use YouTube either.
No, I got it. So I do believe in clocking creativity, which means like having a schedule and actually making time to do a particular thing. So often I'll do things in themes so that I have like a couple weeks where I'm doing one type of thing, like cut up poetry, for example. Um, I start each day off with a list on paper of things I want to get done. And I kind of divide my notebook into sparks, irons in the fire, back burner, and campfire, which means that I've already put it out in the world and it's shared. But I have all these kind of back burner projects, right? Things I just have sparks of ideas for, but I haven't really started them yet. And then back burners, stuff I've already started and I need to keep going.
Okay.
but I do make time for it. Like there was a time when I hated 3:30. It's like I'm the worst in the afternoon. I just am. I'm a night person and I'm also the early morning person, but where that's actually when I get most of my creative work done is really early in the morning. But 3:30 just killed me. So I forced myself. I kind of gave myself a creative kick in the pants and I said, "Okay, at 3:30 every day, you're going to sketch a quote." And this allowed me to find really cool quotes that I've now sort of internalized and I often draw upon in talks or whatever. Um, Often it'd be like if the person died that day, I'd look up a quote from them, or something like that. And then, it helped my sketching because that just takes practice. You just have to get better and better and practice every day. But it was something that really forced me to concentrate for about 10 minutes each day at a particular time. So I think scheduling is really important. I think writing things down. I write things down on real paper all over the place, and those are my two big. Having a notebook by your bed. That's the other thing. Not that I'm a surrealist, but I do believe that like your best ideas often happen in the middle of the night or right when you wake up. Um, Also when you're drinking. So if you go to the pub, have a notebook because often the best ideas will happen when you're drinking as well, because your mind just gets, your internal editor gets shut off a little bit. You can't drink too much, otherwise you'll lose it. Um, but having a notebook to archive, it's like a net that catches butterflies. If the ideas were butterflies, the net will catch them, and the net is the notebook. So always have that. Or you could do voice messages on your phone, but that's not as romantic as having a notebook. So, yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. I think it's really interesting in this day and age where we have so much digital tools around us that it's interesting. You mentioned a voice note there, but the first thing you went to is something actually really kind of tried and tested, and pen to paper.
But I have to give a shout out to the phone on the smart camera. So on the smartphone, this camera app, because I think the camera app has changed. I think it's the most transformative change that I think we've had as in the past 10 years, is having a camera on us at all times.
Okay.
That means you can take as many pictures as you want and not feel bad about it. Remember when I was little, it's like, okay, it was a crapshoot of how, I have 15 photos I can take. I don't know what they're going to look like until I get them from the printer, and I better not waste them. And now you can just take so many. So I think for me, that is the most powerful app that has ever been invented, is the ubiquitous camera app on our smartphones. And I think for me as a person who likes to travel and wander around and take in everything, all the details, that I can archive them through my camera app. So
okay, so
got to give a shout out to those people that invented the camera app.
Yeah, definitely. So before we get into your book, because I kind of want to jump into that and get a bit of understanding of where that come from and stuff. If you was to give a gift to a child, a physical gift, what would that gift be?
Oh, wow. I think a very large pad of very quality blank white paper. Very good quality blank white paper. And actually that is my favorite gift to give my daughter. She has always loved just the possibilities that a pad of blank white paper can possess.
Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about your book. So your book is Intention Critical Creativity in the Classroom. So yeah, why? Where did that come about? Kind of why did you release it to the world, other to share? Kind of just walk me through kind of that whole from an idea to kind of a book. What's right in front of me now?
So I met Dan Ryder, who teaches in Maine, and he teaches through the lens of design thinking.
Okay.
And I wasn't that familiar with design thinking when I met him, but I was actually doing design thinking without knowing it, but doing a lot of creative things. And I love, of course, the arts. I think everything should be taught through the lens of the arts and philosophy. But when Dan and I met, we started sharing ideas, and we actually got our classes together, which was really funny because Maine and Hawaii are about the farthest you can get in the United States and still be in the United States. And they got together and did some projects together. And we set people just loved our ideas because we would always share our ideas and what we were doing. We were both pretty transparent online. And we said, well, we should just pool all these together in a kind of thematic, organized way and, pool our efforts and make a book. Now, I wasn't really thrilled with the concept of writing a book because I'd already written a lot of curriculum that ended up being books. I didn't like it. It was tedious. I tend to like shorter things, shorter bits, like small videos or just like one graphic design. And for me too, the book, I have a problem with books in that the same problem that Socrates had, which is like with the printed word, with text in general, is that you can't have a conversation with the author in effect. I mean, it just kind of stays there bound between these covers. So I made a point of saying, I want this to be a living book. I want it to be remixable. I want it to be a book that, although it's tangible, it also kind of can have this life and community online. So that's why we put a hashtag to every single activity. It's a unique hashtag. So people, as they use this, as they do the activities, they can share online and our community will grow. And it's happening. So I'm really happy that we did that. But it is fun to have, this body of work in front of you and go, ooh, these are all my ideas in a little one handy place. So we decided, I actually flew to Maine and we brainstormed on index cards, which are Dan's favorite creative tool, index cards. We doodled it all out and we started writing. And of course it had to be virtual because, I had to go back home sometimes. So we sort of collaborated on everything. It wasn't like he wrote a chapter and I wrote a chapter. We kind of, it's a mashup really of all of our thinking. And we're really quite happy with it. But what we're seeing now is that because the premise of intention is that creativity is content agnostic, so meaning it can really go with any class you teach, with any age student, we really are finding that adults and people who facilitate teams and, coach adults or whatever are loving it. So what I want to do is kind of remix my own book into maybe a card deck for L&D or for, people who work with teams and whatnot. So that's my next goal, is to do that.
Okay. So I guess, yeah, I mean, one of the things which me and, like I said, my mentor and stuff and a couple of other people, what I've noticed with my unique, I like to call it a creative circle. I think that thing of you are the percentage of the, the 5 people around you is so true. And if you're in a creative environment, that's just a perfect place to be. But we talk back and forth about the importance of creativity and play in the grown up. And I guess, one of the things which come up was how quick as children move from children to adults, we lose this kind of creative flair in us. So is that something you've noticed as you've kind of been going around and kind of, putting your imprint on the world and stuff? Is that something you've noticed?
Yeah, what I've noticed when I work with adults and doing all these playful things, well, first you have to frame it and say, all these famous people like Einstein, creativity is intelligence having fun, he said. And then there's combinatorial play. He said all good things happen, new ideas happen because you're playing and combining elements. So this playfulness thing is really important because play is actually hard fun. I mean, it's actually work and it involves trust. It involves persistence. It involves all kinds of things. It involves a goal. It involves mastery. We learn through play. That's how humans start to learn, is we learn through play. And we tend to lose it because of our environments and our expectations as we get older. But the best ideas really come from this. What I've noticed when adults are doing the activities that, I'm offering them, that being playful with their ideas, first they have to break through that kind of creative confidence thing, that being creative is not being an artist. So a lot of people are not artistically talented, but that doesn't mean they're not creative, right? So they have to first think that creativity is not art. And then they have to get to think that sometimes your gut feeling is actually the best. So not to overthink things. And then they have to have strategies and experiences that allow them to be playful and be okay with that. So that involves having a trustful community, a sense of trust within the community and a sense of respect. so that you're not criticizing some idea because it's silly, and getting them through those humps that we've been conditioned to have as we're adults takes some time. But once they realize that it doesn't have to take a lot of time, and that thinking metaphorically is kind of like where it's at, and that'll help them grow exponentially as thinkers and ideators. I think that's where the beauty happens. And adults absolutely love getting hands-on, like even working with plasticine and Lego and all that. I mean, it's not silly, and it actually is really good for us, especially since we're always on our phones or on a screen. We're losing that tactile kind of experience, and I think people love that. And even using their bodies, like I did a data visualization thing. Instead of making a chart or graph, why don't we use our bodies for data viz and props? And it's so much fun because you can still drive the point home, and especially could even be more interesting if you use your bodies.
Okay. Wow, that sounds pretty interesting. And again, it's completely, that's something I've never really experienced. But wow, that's pretty powerful, I guess. It's different, and I guess that's one of the biggest things for me. The difference, if you can separate something from the norm, then instantly, not the recall, but the experience starts to build from that.
Yeah, we're as humans, we seek novel experiences, and the things that are surprising will be sticky to us. I love the word poignancy because it's like poignant. Actually, when I did the research on it, because I love that word, it comes from to prick. And I often thought like, oh, it's like pricking at your heart or your soul or your emotions or whatever. It's pricking you and making something sticky. And that's what we want for learning, right? So how do you create a poignant experience?
That's my that can be, well, for the rest of the day. So it's like getting on to 9 o'clock here now. So for the rest of today, I'll use that as my word of the day, 100%.
All right. There you go.
So how do you get over in the initial moment? How do you get over? I'm sure you probably heard this question a lot. Oh, I'm not creative. I can't do that. I'm not creative. How do you get over that question in the moment?
Well, I mean, for me, a big part of the first thing that I ever talk about with people before we delve into all the stuff about what creativity is and how it works and how we can be more creative is that it's not equated with art, because I think we just have this mindset. There's a big misunderstanding that, if you're musical or artistic or whatever, and you have that talent, then you are creative. Well, that's true, but that's not all creativity. So driving home the point that creativity is about connecting dots, and you can do that with thinking, with mixing things in different ways, and then seeing analogies and coming up with something that's a mashup of two different ideas. All that is creativity. And this sense of, taking things in and really noticing them and archiving them in your little library so that you can connect the dots. And so that's kind of how I started. And it seems to really get people, because after they're done with the experience, they say, oh, I never thought I was creative, and now I realize I am. And really, sometimes it's just getting them to think in metaphors, which everybody could do. We grow up on metaphors. I mean, a lot of fairy tales are sort of metaphorical. And one of my favorite activities, for example, is find an image that you've taken on your phone. So something in your camera roll that's a metaphor for, and then I throw out a topic like learning or creativity or change or whatever. And it's something so easy that everyone can do. But the thing is, they have to explain why they chose it. That's the key. Right. And everybody can do it. And they realize like, oh my gosh, I was just being really creative because I'm using a metaphor and with something that I just found, and I'm making it have a different meaning.
Okay. So let's change gears a little bit then. So if you was, say, I don't know, maybe a football stadium, and you bought a billboard on the outside of the football stadium, so all the thousands of people out of this stadium would walk out to see your billboard. What message would you put on that billboard?
That's a great question. Now you're going to have me designing billboards over there. I would say, I think more whimsy, please, would be my thing. I love whimsy. And I just think life would be so much better if we had more of it and we just took ourselves a little less seriously and had fun with things. Had fun with our work, had fun with the hard stuff, but also had fun just for fun's sake and appreciated the whimsical. I actually looked up the word whimsical recently for a thing, and I found that it comes from the Old Norse to have your eyes wander and explore. And I think that's really cool because that's kind of what I'm all about is wandering and exploring. So yeah, more whimsy, please. There you go. That's my billboard.
Perfect. So this might not necessarily need an answer straight away, but if Mickey is a mouse and Donald is a duck, what's Goofy?
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird? He's like some anthropomorphic dog, isn't he? Like,
Yes.
he is. He's an anthropomorphic dog. That's what I'm calling Goofy.
You are literally the first person to get that right.
Really?
Yeah. So some people struggle and go, "Oh, is he a dog?" I'm like, "Well, is he a dog? Because Pluto's a dog, and Goofy drives a car and wears a hat a lot of the times and talks. So it's But you summed it up. It's just Well done. Well done. I'm impressed. I am impressed.
He's the dog. He's the person we always wanted to be. We wanted to be a dog person. Like we wanted to be more dog, less person and more dog, but still have the perks of being a person, right?
This is it. Summed up perfectly. So, if I was to ask you out of your whole working day, and maybe no, actually, let's not do working day. Let's do out your whole normal day today. What?
Wait, none of my days are normal.
Okay, so
No,
this is going to be a
kidding.
good question then. So, if I say to you, you can pick 2 hours out of your day, which you would have to do over and over again, what 2 hours of your day would you pick?
Wow. All right. So I'm doing some cut up poetry now and I love it. So my whole table is filled with words, just words that I rearrange into puzzles and phrases. And I love doing that. It's very calming to me. So that would be my 1 hour. And maybe my next hour is that perfect time of day when it's starting to get evening and I pour myself a little whiskey, little really good peated whiskey from Scotland. And I sit down and I just draw as well, just to kind of also kind of calm me down. It's that little transitionary moment between the day and the night where it's just kind of lovely, right? You're just treating yourself.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that would be it.
So when we talk about drawing, this is just a side question which just come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
So you do your drawing, let's just say with your very standard, paper, pencils, paintbrushes, whichever. Have you ever kind of tried drawing with like an iPad and an iPencil?
Actually, funny you should ask, because most of my drawings are digital and they are with my phone, which is an iPhone 6. I use one app called Paper by 53, which is a very simple drawing app, but it's my favorite one. And I've actually been loyal to them for a very long time. And they've been very kind to me and sent me cool styluses and stuff. But I love just drawing with my finger because it's really visceral. And the reason I use my phone is because it's always with me. So I did have an iPad at one time, but I found it to be too cumbersome and it wasn't always with me. And I love the creative constraint actually of like, could I create all my creative work on my phone? So I make movies, I do animations, do drawings. Everything I put out in the past 1.5 years has been on my phone. It's amazing what the phone can do. So that's my favorite way to draw actually is with my finger digitally.
Okay. So is there anything what you've kind of noticed? Maybe, what's the thing which you looking out into the world, you've looked at something and gone, God damn it, I wish I'd come up with that idea. Is there anything out there which, and let's not go with something simple like Google. Let's go with something, completely Amy-like.
Oh, wow. This is such a good question. There's a lot of ideas I have apps that I wanted to develop that don't exist, but there's, oh man. I'm just looking around my house. I wish, this is so hard. I guess there's so many things. No, but I mean, I wish To be honest, I wish I would have invented like an art movement. I mean, something like, how Picasso developed Cubism or, something like that. But I think the camera, to be honest, I wish I would have invented the camera. And and I think it's just magical. Cameras of all types. I mean, now we have, of course, digital, but like I think that's a really magical thing because you're capturing moments in time. And I think that's kind of where that's my true love, is capturing a moment in time, whether I sketch it, whether I take a photo, whether I make a poem about it, whether I just take it in and remember it for later. I just love like little moments. And I think that's what I would love to do, is capture that, or be able to be the one who said, I invented the way to capture a moment. I don't know.
Perfect. It's really interesting. I'm into photography myself, and I follow a guy called Thomas Heaton. He does a lot of YouTube videos as a photographer, and recently he's gone back to film rather than continue with his digital camera, because he says it puts the constraint back on him. He can't just take 1,000 pictures and look for the best one. And it's just going back to kind of what you said, the constraints, putting that a bit of constraint on your creativity and kind of, working within probably maybe what people would what people would probably call confinements. It's actually really interesting. It literally just come to me, so I probably went off tangent a little bit there.
That's great though.
So other than you mentioned you cutting up the poetry and the word poetry and stuff. What is there anything else you're learning right now? Something new?
What I'm really interested in learning more about and working with actually is, I'm really fascinated by the use of virtual reality for healing. And especially because like my mother had cancer too, and she was in hospice. And I always thought when I was going through my things, like it would be so great if I was in chemo to have virtual reality. And there's this, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but it's Soylent Green from the 60s. And it's this, dystopian thing or whatever. But the guy, because the world is overpopulated, there's a euthanasia center, and this guy goes in and he picks his favorite song and his favorite color, and he goes in to get shot with the poison that's going to kill him. And he's surrounded by giant screens, which of course now could be just glasses, right? And then these screens are these beautiful film of the deer roaming through the forest, all these things that he wants to see because it's just fabulous, right? So I've often thought about that as like, why don't we have virtual reality for people who are suffering and people who are in hospice and in pre-surgery, post-surgery, have cancer or whatever. So I'm really fascinated by, could I get involved in that somehow? And I want to find out more about that.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I've been reading a book recently called Little Big Things, and it's about a guy who he went on a lad's holiday, he jumps into the sea and kind of his head hit the sandbank, and it made him completely paralyzed from the neck down. And I'm just applying what you just said then, under how the whole book is about him finding kind of his he's going through his journey, and he's actually got into arts now as well, so he paints with his mouth, which is really interesting. He's on Twitter. He's really good follow. But I wonder how that would have been, because I think on the new Samsung TV advert, they've got people wearing VR goggles, aren't they? Kind of trying to find that muscle movement again with prosthetic limbs and stuff. I just think, so that's a really an interesting branch of probably a whole different conversation what we could have. So just kind of changing that a little bit. So your music videos, they're amazing. They're literally amazing. And kind of before we kind of got on this podcast, I was doing a little bit of social stalking, but in the best possible way.
Okay.
And I guess your music videos, you've done a few TED Talks as well. What's been your biggest learning from your music videos or from your TED Talks?
Well, my TED Talk. So here's the thing. So when we got first asked to do, I've done 2 TED Talks, and the first time it was based on the fact that I'd done all these music videos, and I said, well, I can't just talk about the music videos. That would be silly, right? So I have to think of, what did I learn from it? So that first one was called, What Did I Learn from Napoleon and MTV? And I kind of fashioned it all around Napoleon's quotes. But basically it was what did I learn from the experience? And the same thing goes for the second TED Talk. It was what can I learn from famous artists and the way they worked, their creative processes to make me a better teacher and learner and creative. And I think that's the thing, is like, what can you learn from it? And I learned so much from, from doing the videos and putting them out on YouTube, because that whole social media thing was brand new to me. And I had to learn, kind of on the fly. So I guess I learned that you have to, sometimes things just come at you and you just have to seize them and learn right then, even though you didn't expect them. But another big takeaway, I think, too, is kind of what I mentioned before, that you might have this preconceived notion of, your intended audience or the intended purpose of something. But once you launch something out in the world, you don't know where it's going to hit and you don't know who it's going to affect. And I really think it's important to stress that even if it helps just one person and you get just one piece of lovely feedback from someone, it doesn't matter if 500 million other people hate it or whatever, it doesn't. So I think that's what I see with kids today. It's like they'll put up a picture on Instagram, and if it doesn't have 100 likes in 2 hours, they'll take it down. And I'm like, how can you take your creative work that you were once proud of down? Because maybe it's going to affect one person in a positive way. So I really feel strongly about that, and being non-apologetic, just putting it out there, even if you don't think it's perfect. But it was worth doing for you, so share it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You mentioned, about the whole social media thing. I think social media is an absolute gift, but it can be an absolute agony to some as well. We kind of live in a world now where we want instant gratification, be it through, the stuff which you use, the likes, the kind of the comments, stuff like that. And it is such a shame, because that's your moment, I guess, and whatever's kind of put you to your picture, whichever you've developed, it's like, if you look at, say, a drawing, there's a lot of emotion being put into that drawing and kind of where your head was at when that come around. I just think it's such a shame to just be able to delete that snapshot of a memory.
Mm-hmm. And it's a piece of you.
Yeah.
It's an extension of yourself. And I think it's important. I think that confidence, it's very hard for people to grow that confidence and just not caring. But I think that's what has to happen and that's why looking at famous artists, like in that TED Talk I did, really helped me, because a lot of those people, like Monet, even, for example, they were really chastised when they started out, or, when they tried something different, nobody understood it and they were criticized. And instead of stopping, they kept moving on. And I think that's the thing, is like, don't worry about the critics, because they probably don't even get it. You know what I mean? And if it makes you happy, then, if it came from you, it's going to be beautiful, because, you're beautiful. So there you go.
It's true. It's such a shame that, the let's not say the innovators, but the creatives, the people who come up with the ideas, the expressive people, and the people who come up with ideas which are probably maybe so far advanced that people just aren't ready for it. Like, it's a constant battle with the tide. It's such a shame that that's still kind of here. I think it's got better, obviously, but it's still there within, big corporate environments. You can still see that, go into any business, and some of the best ideas kind of some of them don't even really see light of day. It's just, it's a bit of a shame. Anyway, so what's, in what you do, Amy, you're always kind of coming up with new ideas at some points and expressing yourself and stuff. So at what point, whenever you start to lose focus, or you lack the creative flow, or, you start hitting a wall with something you're doing, how do you regain focus? And how do you, maybe it's how do you regain focus, but actually how do you bring yourself back into the moment?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in incubation as part of the creative process, so stepping away from something for a while. I'm taking a break. Another thing that I often do is something a lot of people do, is do something mundane, like take a walk or do the dishes or do the laundry or take a swim. Something kind of, you're not thinking, but in the back of your head, you're still thinking and processing it. So when I swim laps, which is really boring, but good for my body, I often think of really amazing ideas. A lot of people think of ideas in the shower, for example, right? So all of that helps. And then one trick I did find, I was supposed to do writing for work, and I was just struggling. I had a real writer's block. It was not fun. But I had my cut up poetry all on the table, and every once in a while I would just stand up and, work out a little puzzle with the words. Basically, it's like a puzzle, right? So you're rearranging the words. And that really helps stimulate my juices, I guess, to have me come back fresh. But really being okay with stepping away from something for a while is important.
Okay. This is a side note again, have you ever been in a flotation tank?
No, but
Okay.
I don't know if I would like that. I can't even scuba dive without freaking out. So maybe, maybe not. Have you tried that?
So yeah, I've done it a couple of times. I can't remember who put me onto it actually. It was a while ago. But basically, you are in a bit of it's a bit like an oversized bath, basically. You can't drown or anything like that, but the idea is that the salt balances out the gravity pushing down, so you're in pitch black darkness. So and the idea is that you start becoming stimulated, so your body realizes that there's no gravity pushing down on you, and then the idea is a lot of creative thinkers do it and kind of use it as a bit of a deep relaxation. I know a lot of comedians do it as well, kind of when they're writing this, the material. They tend to do a lot of it tends to be done in something like a flotation tank. But yeah, I've just thought, I'd chat out with you.
I might try. Well, I do something like that in the pool where I just float and my ears get, have the water in them so I can't hear anything, and I close my eyes. So I guess I make my own flotation tank up. But I mean, that does help. I call it my, oh gosh, what's the graduate moment? Like in the movie The Graduate, he's floating like that and just tuning everything out. Yeah. Huh. Okay, I might try that if I don't get too claustrophobic. I do like dark though.
Yes.
I do like being in the kind of bright light is not helpful for me for creativity. I have to be sort of in the shade,
Yeah.
blackout curtains and stuff. Everybody has their own thing, right? But yeah.
I think you give it a go. Life's about experiences, right?
Okay, well maybe when I'm in England, I'll ask you for where I should go and I'll check it out.
Yeah, definitely. There's one in Manchester, literally. So yeah, and I think there's quite a few in London and stuff. So yeah, you could definitely get one sorted as well. So I guess at the beginning I asked you to pick out some numbers.
Yes, I'm dying to know what this is for. Okay.
So these numbers tally up to a right long list of random objects, and the idea is pretty simple. You're stuck on a desert island, and your numbers tally up to these random objects. So you have a picture frame, a shoelace, a spoon, and a bottle cap. What would you do with these items?
Bottle cap. Oh wow. Picture frame, shoelace, a spoon, and okay. So I'm thinking of creating my own art by tying the picture frame with the shoelace up to different scenes in nature just to stimulate my, creating my own like found art with the picture frame and the shoelace. So that I can, find different perspectives and pretend I'm in a museum even though I'm on this island. The spoon and the bottle cap. Wow. Oh gosh. Knowing me, I'd probably make jewelry out of it because I'd probably want to have some sort of jewelry, some sort of thing. Oh, wow. That's really a great exercise. Yeah. I think the spoon and the bottle cap could make interesting noise as well, but I probably wouldn't want noise. Yeah, I'd probably do some sort of artsy thing. I'd probably use the spoon as sort of a stylus in the sand, and the bottle cap with its fluted edges could create a pattern on something. And
perfect.
I think that's probably what I would do. Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing practical, right? Just something to keep me sane. Just like
could be worse. You could have a Casey ball and draw a face on it. So, what's at the start of our conversation? I asked you when you was young, what it was when the teacher asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, and you mentioned potentially a spy or an illustrator. And the thing is we never really truly grow up. We never really do. It doesn't stop at a certain age, and that's it. And we constantly learn, develop, and kind of embrace having a child. So if I was to ask you now, Amy, what is it you want to be when you grow up? What would you say?
My ideal thing would be, besides being a kind and memorable person, would be to be the designer of interactive experiences in museums, especially art museums, because there's a lot of really cool like science museums that have that, but a lot of times I frequent art museums and I feel like they could just be so much better if we could actually have the people participating in that type of art that they're seeing. And so I would love to do something like that.
Okay.
And maybe I will. And also the cancer thing, also working with how to do cancer better, basically, how to make it better for cancer patients and make their experience better, whether it be with VR or with, instituting massages post-surgery, pre-surgery. I have all these ideas, but I feel like I need to give back to that community in a way. So
how ace would it be if, we get a younger audience going into these art museums and, you go to say, a picture and you hold up your phone and the augmented reality kicks in. And then actually what you have is this artist who create the piece telling you all about it. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, I want to use that. See, remember that idea I told you about remixing it? So I want to have that be an app so you can go and then hold it up and you can see everybody else's remix of that art and you can comment on them, like a social media AR thing for museums.
Wow.
But I don't know if that'll ever exist.
Wow.
Maybe somebody will hear this and go, Amy, yes, I will develop that for you.
Let's make it happen. Okay, awesome. Well, Amy, we're kind of coming to an end now, but where can people find out a little bit more about you and kind of what you're up to and kind of keep in touch with you?
Well, the best way is really through Twitter. I put everything out on, at Amy Burvall. So all my creative work, all my blogging, which is more of my thinking, all that goes on Twitter. Also Instagram, if you're interested in the artwork that I do and the remixes and some of my photography and travels, that'll be there. We have a book site, Twitter. We have a book site, intentionthebook.online, which gives you a little sampling. And then we also have a Twitter handle at intentionbook, which is really cool because you can see what other people are doing with the book. But mostly, I do a lot of my thinking on my blog, which is, you'll probably have in the show notes, but it's kind of a long thing. I'm redoing my website right now, so don't go there yet because I'm totally redoing that and giving it a new home and a new look. So yeah, I think Twitter's really the best place, and Instagram too.
Okay, superb. Well, Amy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you had me on and we got to chat. And now my goal is going to be to find a tank
yes.
to float in.
Do it. You won't look back. You will not look back.
Okay.
Cheers, Amy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny.
Bye-bye.